The chamber was a cathedral of power, bathed in sterile white light and polished obsidian. Every wall curved inwards like it wanted to whisper secrets, and the silence between speakers fell like a blade. At the center, on a dais shaped like a crescent moon, stood 4 young human women, barefoot, shackled by glowing bands at the wrists, dressed in threadbare gray uniforms, the kind reserved for Earth detainees. They did not look afraid. The first, barely 20, with storm-gray eyes and a scar that disappeared into her temple braid, gazed upward as if counting stars beyond the ceiling. The second, taller, dark-skinned, her posture unbent despite the chain tug at her neck, had a slight smile that unsettled the room. The third kept her eyes downcast, but her lips moved ever so slightly, murmuring, it seemed, to herself or to someone no one could see. And the fourth, red-haired and freckled, studied the aliens in the audience like a botanist cataloging flowers. A silver-scaled prosecutor from the Zarth Dominion stepped forward. His voice echoed through the hovering record spheres. On this day, sanctioned by Article 5 of the Pax Galactica, he announced, we assemble for final judgment of the 4 Terran operatives found guilty of conspiracy, espionage, and incitement of rebellion across 9 sectors. The crowd, varied and important, shifted with smug interest. A Gorthan noble clicked his claws in rhythm. A sulfur-breathing TSYR diplomat sipped a pungent drink as if watching opera. Only one face in the observation booth did not move. Ambassador Marcus Hale, Earth's official envoy, sat politely. Not stoic. Not defiant. Just calm. The prosecutor gestured to the women. Do you deny the charges? The youngest, the one with the scar, lifted her head. We didn't come to deny. We came to be heard. A ripple of laughter stirred the court. The Zarth cocked his head. You'll be heard screaming when the air leaves your lungs. She said softly. That's your hope, not our design. He narrowed his eyes but moved on. For clarity in public record, you are accused of transmitting human cultural propaganda into restricted systems. Poems, myths, stories, even songs. He said the last word with distaste, as if describing a parasite. The redhead lifted her chin. We only shared memory. Another laugh, but quieter this time. You destabilized 2 planetary governments with a single story about wolves and grandmothers. It was a good story, said the tall one. We told it slow. The prosecutor slammed a fist on his lectern. This court does not debate the power of lies. It punishes them. From the far booth, Marcus Hale adjusted his cufflink. The aliens had not noticed the detail. Not yet. The Zartha's voice dipped to ceremony. You will be sentenced to death by execution beam. Immediate. Public. Irrevocable. The women didn't flinch. But one of them, the one who'd murmured, lifted her eyes for the first time. Before that, may I have my necklace? There was confusion. The guards exchanged glances. It was my father's, she added. He told me to keep it close if I ever needed to speak to him again. The Zarth waved her off. Sentimental human relics are property of the court. She nodded. Then remember, you're holding more than you think. The Zarth resumed reading, his tone sharpening. These 4 daughters of Earth. Women, the tall one corrected gently. We were never children to you. A hush. In the observation ring, several alien dignitaries whispered. One of the older Tiswire muttered, They're too composed. An Ikari technician adjusted a monitor, frowning. Galactic feeds experiencing lag. Slight, static interference. Still, the trial marched forward. Hale rose briefly, bowing his head. On behalf of the Terran Accord, we accept the court's verdict, though not its justice. May history make clearer judgments than today. The Zarth prosecutor smirked. May history forget you. Hale paused just long enough. It never does. He turned and exited, hands behind his back, not hurried, not solemn. Observers barely noticed the flick of his pinky ring, a signal. Back inside the chamber, the execution timer began counting down. A projected sundial, glowing red. 10 minutes. The prisoners were led toward the platform. Their heads remained high. Chains clinked, echoing like rain in a cave. Someone in the crowd hissed, "Why don't they scream?" Another replied, "Humans don't know when they've lost." The youngest turned her head and said, not loudly, "We do. We just don't accept it." At minute 5, a vibration rippled beneath the floor. A technician coughed. Lights flickered. Once, then again. At minute 3, one of the guards reached for a comm and frowned. Signal dropout. Shortwave, backup, everything, gone. "Continue," the Zarth ordered. "Technical glitches are expected. Symbolism must be maintained." At minute 1, the 4 women stood beneath the hanging beams, columns of energy ready to suspend them until nerve collapse. The scarred one looked skyward. "Moonrise," she whispered. The tall one beside her gripped her hand. "Let's show them silence isn't weakness." Execution beams activated. The courtroom hummed. And then, blackout. Not just light, but signal, sound, gravity calibration. Everything blinked out. For 9 seconds, nothing but blankness. When systems resumed, the court's main screen flickered to life, hijacked. A single image filled it. The necklace. Suspended in space. Spinning slowly. Then a voice, young, female, unshaken. "We thank you for the stage. We've rehearsed this performance for decades. You thought you were watching the ending. You were watching the trigger." Another pause. Then, a second voice, familiar, but older. "Marcus Hale. Protocol second bell is live." Screens across the galaxy froze. Feed stations seized. Civilian networks crashed. Territory maps glitched, red markings now flickering in Earth's orbit. Inside the trial chamber, someone finally whispered, "What second bell?" The scarred woman, still standing, smiled. "We are." The moon was meant to be quiet, ceremonial, controlled. Instead, the sky cracked open. What the Empire expected was a neat execution, a final punctuation mark to centuries of Terran agitation. What they got was silence, then blackout, then a name whispered across comms that hadn't been used in 70 years. Second bell. The viewing towers emptied in confusion. Officials scrambled. Commanders screamed into dead channels. But the 4 women stood untouched, energy beams now frozen mid-discharge, flickering like broken glass caught in a sunbeam. They didn't run, didn't flinch. They stood in a row, eyes forward, as though awaiting applause. Somewhere beneath the moon's platform, backup generators churned against human malware, trying to reboot the Empire's most secure site. Drones hovered, unresponsive. One spiraled and crashed into the polished floor. The youngest woman looked upward. 19 seconds late," she said. The redhead beside her gave a quiet nod. "That's grandmother. Always fashionably late to her own funeral." Above them, the stars pulsed. At first glance, random flickers. To a trained eye, code. Binary. Direction. Not a rescue. Not a fleet. A reminder. The signal was everywhere, from shattered border outposts to luxury satellites orbiting imperial palaces. A simple looping message in dozens of alien tongues. "You hanged daughters. But you never learned their names. You should have asked about their parents." On the moon's control deck, a technician staggered back from his console. "We've lost every beacon." "How?" barked a gold-plated governor. "This is Central Command. No human even has clearance here." A junior officer turned pale, whispering, "They didn't need it. They wrote the map we built on." Panic surged. Couriers ran. Emergency lights flickered between green and red, a nauseating rhythm. Back on the platform, the women were finally approached, cautiously, like they were unexploded mines. A general from the IRX coalition, tusks twitching in confusion, stepped forward. "Who are you?" The tallest woman looked him in the eye. "My mother designed your Central War algorithm." He blinked. "That's classified." She coded it when she was 19. Disguised it as a tactical upgrade. It's been listening ever since. The redhead stepped in. I'm the niece of the diplomat who brokered the Agrathi surrender. Your people call it a peace treaty. We called it a draft. The murmurer, small, quiet, lifted her chin. My father once burned a planet by accident. He was drunk. He called it an unacceptable spill. You might know him by his call sign, Nox 11. A silence more dangerous than gunfire spread. A few feet away, Marcus Hale emerged from shadow, untouched, hands clean, voice pleasant. Now the introductions begin. He looked at the Empire's assembled council. Did you really think Earth would let its daughters die for nothing? 4 girls, spat the Zarth prosecutor, chest heaving. You sent 4 girls to threaten a star empire? Girls. Hale's smile held. No, sir. We raised warnings. He looked at the redhead. Name. She answered without hesitation. Rhea Delacroix. Strategic Systems Command. Daughter of Commander Ansel Delacroix. Ranked 5 on the kill simulation net. Real-world experience. 9 conflicts. No survivors left behind. The murmurer. Tessara Hale. Biological daughter of Marcus Hale. First in her class at Olympus Shadow Corps. Founder of the Laughing Code, your Empire's last 6 audit failures were mine. The tall one, Naya Sol. Second-generation colonial. Parents, extinct. Adopted by Major General Yusef Sol. I speak 16 languages, including yours. I've spoken at your funerals. And the scarred one, Lena Knox. Yes, that Knox. Some of the audience gasped. One alien general staggered back, muttering, She's the ghost child? Hale nodded. Second Bell wasn't just a plan. It was a family tree. You just pruned the branches. The roots are awake. Somewhere behind the crowd, an explosion bloomed on the far side of the moon. Quiet, precise, not panic-inducing, but calculated. A voice came through the chamber's sound system. Someone female, older, with a dry wit laced in steel. This is Grandmother Adissa. I see you failed to feed my girls before the hanging. Manners matter. More murmurs. Someone whispered, Adissa Sol is dead. She disappeared. No, Hale said. She just retired. There's a difference. Suddenly the chamber lit with new projections. Footage of the women growing up. Training silently in deserts, on glaciers, under oceans. Laughing in war rooms. Bleeding and learning. Standing alone, then together. This wasn't a rescue. It was a broadcast. On distant worlds, human-built installations began to stir. Factories long thought abandoned reactivated. Mining colonies stopped transmitting or began sending coordinates. Old refugee camps blinked signals in Morse, Earth's lost language, never really lost. Even alien civilians began to worry. Why are they not attacking? They are. You're just not watching the right screen. The Empire's command tried to reroute systems. They couldn't. The core relay hubs were shifting. A digital mutiny. A Zarian noble screamed. What do you want? You've proven you can humiliate us. Lena looked at him. You thought this was about vengeance. It's not. No, she said. It's about memory. One of the moons cracked. Not from weaponry. From sound. A pulse buried centuries ago. A frequency only humans would ever find poetic. It was a lullaby. The redhead hummed softly, matching the frequency. The others joined her. Why? The alien demanded. Tessara looked at him. So you never forget how we started. Outside, Imperial patrols tried to regroup. But their AI systems had retranslated the human voice in their ears. You hanged daughters. The galaxy hangs in return. At the edge of the chamber, a new display unfolded, a countdown. It wasn't Earth's. It was the Empire's own emergency evacuation timer. Somehow repurposed. Rewritten. Time until global feed override. 4 minutes and 59 seconds. An alien judge collapsed into his seat. It's already begun. Hale leaned against the wall, folding his arms. You executed 4 names you didn't study. You thought they were symbols of weakness. But in our culture, names are legacy. You turned ours into legends. The prosecutor sneered. We'll recover. We always recover. Rhea looked at him and tilted her head. Did you know I was born on one of your outer colonies? No. She nodded. Then you never even saw the match being lit. The Empire's final fail-safe beacon began to smoke. It had never been used. It was meant to summon reinforcements. Instead, it played a nursery rhyme. And on the 4 women's forearms, faint blue tattoos pulsed in time. Coordinates. Their parents weren't coming. They were already here. Waiting. The names didn't echo. They embedded. They threaded into the consoles of battlecruisers, whispered through corrupted star charts, and infected the pride of an empire that had mistaken quiet for surrender. By the 3rd hour after the failed execution, Empire analysts had traced the identities of the 4 women. Then deleted the files. Then rechecked. Then panicked. Because those names weren't random. They weren't rebels, or poets, or cultural nuisances. They were bloodlines. Each woman was a cipher, a carrier of legacies the galaxy tried to forget. They hadn't just inherited power. They had trained with it, bled for it, memorized its switches and blind spots. The Empire had condemned not orphans, not martyrs, but descendants of architects. From a remote outpost deep in the Gorgon Vale, an old IRX archivist activated a dusty failsafe and whispered to his aides, I was there when Earth withdrew from the Galactic War Accords. I remember what the silence meant. He paused. We didn't win. We were spared. Across the stars, that memory reawakened like a fever. Every forgotten Terran handshake, every unreturned gesture of goodwill, every time an Earth vessel had docked and been underestimated, now revisited with dread. The galaxy had never known what those daughters were for. Now they did. In the heart of the Zarth Palace ship, the High Strategist hissed through jagged teeth. They weren't hostages. They were triggers. The holotable crackled to life, displaying a projection of Lena Knox. A dozen warlords stared at her face. She vanished after childhood, said one. Because her father buried her in shadow, Hale's voice answered from the chamber's speakers. She wasn't hiding. She was listening. They hadn't even noticed when he re-entered the chamber. No guards stopped him. No scanners triggered. I find it ironic, Hale mused, that with all your surveillance, not one of you ever noticed what wasn't said. You tricked us, the Zarian admiral growled. You used children as weapons. We raised them as memory, he said simply. And memory strikes back when you silence it. On the moon's surface, the 4 women had moved. Not far. Just enough to break formation. It wasn't escape, it was intention. Tessara was holding a panel. A simple interface, no larger than a book. It hummed with human frequency, coded in tone rather than language. She pressed 3 fingers to its surface. A hum spiraled through nearby satellites. And Earth replied. It wasn't a fleet. Not yet. It was presence. Stealthed satellites flared awake. Dark matter buoys folded open like steel orchids. Ground-based observatories began receiving simultaneous messages in native dialects. If you're watching this, you participated in a crime. That's fine. We forgive you. But we remember you. On the diplomatic channel, human voices, hundreds of them, layered like hymns, began reciting the names of the dead. Not Earth's. The Empire's. All the soldiers sent to correct Terran colonies. All the commanders who dissolved border towns. All the families erased in official records. And as those names filled the void, the Empire felt, for the first time in its reign, something beneath its feet, history rising like floodwater. In a control bunker orbiting Glissa 7, a young Imperial lieutenant dropped her headset and whispered, We shouldn't have touched the girls. We should have touched the ground they walked on and asked whose it was. Rhea Delacroix was pacing now. She was not speaking for show. She was calculating. Her eyes followed projected fleet movement, overlays of collapse points, cyber backdoors inherited, not hacked, gifted by a father who designed failsafes no one else could see. Every door you think is closed, she murmured, is actually a window. And every window you shattered, we used the shards. Empire ships began reporting gravity drift. Weapons systems loaded themselves into diagnostic loops, rebooting endlessly. A whisper passed through the fleet. Is this war? No. This is forward. Inside the War Council, chaos brewed. Orders clashed. Protocols failed. An empire allergic to humility now found itself drowning in its own noise. Tessara walked toward the center of the chamber, past fallen banners and scattered chairs. Her voice was gentle. My father never gave me a map. He gave me a list of mistakes not to repeat. Your names were on it. A junior officer tried to draw his weapon. Hale raised an eyebrow. Really? Now? The weapon jammed. Of course. Rhea didn't blink. You're still measuring us by volume. We're measuring you by silence. And by the time you feel it. It's too late, Lena finished. On screens across the galaxy, old Earth symbols appeared. Not weapons. Not soldiers. School children. Laughing. Writing. Training. In every language. In every species. The message was clear. Earth was not preparing to fight. It was preparing to raise. Raise the next wave. Raise stories. Raise memory. And if necessary, raise hell. A new voice entered the comms. Deep, slow, marked by age and certainty. It was a man this time. I am General Yusef Sol. My daughter stands among you. And I do not raise soldiers. I raise warnings. You should have listened. In that moment, 1,000 alien military academies lost contact. Terran exchange students vanished from bunk beds. Lesson modules deactivated themselves. Somewhere, far from the spectacle, a little alien girl opened a Terran book and asked, "What's a lullaby?" Her teacher, silent, wept. The red tattoo on Lena's forearm shifted. No longer static coordinates, now an invitation. The Empire had wanted symbols. So Earth gave them daughters. And the daughters gave them mirrors. The chamber lights dimmed again. Not failure. Design. One by one, new windows opened in space. Quiet, patient ships, ancient in design, invisible to those who only looked for force. They carried no flags. Only names. Delacroix. Hale. Knox. The Empire scrambled to reactivate old treaties. But the ones with Earth had expired. Or burned. Or were never signed to begin with. Hale stepped into view, calm as always. You know what we call the moment right before lightning? No one answered. He smiled. A warning. And behind him, space cracked. The stars were not still. They jittered. Across the core ward sectors of the Galactic Empire, navigational software reported inconsistencies. Minor drifts, lost triangulation beacons, light lag on planetary rotation metrics. At first, engineers blamed solar interference. Then sabotage. But no one suspected the truth, that the maps themselves had been rewritten. Not by force. Not by code. By timing. In the vacuum above the Imperial moon, 12 Terran vessels emerged. Not sleek warships. Not imposing dreadnoughts. They resembled merchant hulks, antique diplomatic crafts, even scrap haulers. But inside each floated a single term. Silent signalers, vessels built not to fight, but to awaken. On board, no crews were needed. Just inheritance. Just triggers. And back on the platform where 4 daughters had been hanged, and not died, Rhea Delacroix pressed her palm against a small metal disc on her hip. Her face didn't flinch. From a distance, it looked like she was exhaling. From orbit, it looked like she had detonated the future. The ships lit up, not with weapons, but with light. Pure, encoded light. It pulsed in sequences known only to old Terran codes, sequences written in lullabies, etched into heirlooms, embedded in nursery rhymes. Each pulse a story, each flash a memory. Empire encryption protocols crumpled like paper left in the rain. Not destroyed, not hacked, simply ignored. The core network collapsed in 7 seconds. In the chamber, the Empire's high command screamed. Officers pounded on dead screens. Admirals issued redundant orders. But it didn't matter. Human systems weren't fighting back. They were redirecting the plot. "This isn't war," Lena Knox said quietly, her eyes watching the stars shift through the broken ceiling window. "It's music." Naya Sol stepped forward, slow and sure, her hands behind her back. Her voice was not loud, but it bent the room. "You built an empire on fear. But fear makes you blind. You thought we were chaos wrapped in sentimentality. Wild. Illogical. Soft." She turned to face the High Council. "But we are not vengeance. We are rhythm." One alien admiral, Ugrel, from the Renshai Dominion, stood, trembling with outrage. "You're mad. You weaponized your children." "No," Tessara Hale said gently. "We taught them how to play." All around the room, screens lit again, this time with footage from across the galaxy. Trade routes dissolving into mazes. Colonies going dark. Propaganda satellites now transmitting Terran poetry in every tongue. "We are the story you skipped," one message read. "The lullaby your arrogance forgot." The rhythm escalated. From the heart of every sector where Terrans had ever been stationed, ancient listening posts came alive. Earth never fought for control. It had always fought for placement. The Empire had let Terrans into their language, their systems, their children's schools. And now, Earth sang through it all. The general from the Zarth finally roared, "Enough! We will strike Earth directly. Burn it. Glass it. We have the might." Hale's voice interrupted him like a whisper in a mausoleum. "Earth's not where we keep our most precious things," he said. "It's where we raise them." Tessara stepped forward. "Strike Earth and find nothing but ghosts. The legacy is already airborne." A new transmission began. Not from the daughters. Not from Hale. But from Adissa Sol, grandmother, myth, the woman they thought dead. Her face appeared in grayscale, her voice low and unsmiling. "This is not vengeance," she said. "This is the score. We kept count. You taught us how." Across the galaxy, alien civilians watched in stunned silence as holograms displayed every atrocity, every erased village, every silenced child, every Terran treaty violated under the Empire's rule. One by one, the galaxy watched itself commit its crimes. With timestamps. With audio. With names. The Empire's shame became the broadcast. In the chamber, the tall Renshai admiral whispered, "They didn't bring a fleet. They brought a mirror." The daughters did not speak anymore. They stood still, back straight, like statues carved from purpose. Hale walked into the center of the platform, hands folded. The silence parted for him like water. "You executed 4 human women," he said, voice unadorned, "and expected closure." He looked up. "But humans don't build things to end. We build them to echo." At that moment, the rhythm of the light pulse transmissions reached its crescendo. The Terran vessels above the moon didn't fire. They simply shut down. Their final act was a low, harmonic frequency, a heartbeat, sustained across hundreds of systems. Thump, thump, thump. "Do you feel that?" Rhea asked, not to anyone in particular. "It's not fear," Lena added. "It's recognition." Because suddenly, the Empire remembered. They remembered every time Earth had given warning. Every time it had smiled politely. Every time it had bowed before walking away. They remembered that Earth never threatened loudly. It never showed its claws. It just waited until its children were ready. From the shadow of the high seat, the alien emperor finally spoke. His first words since the trial began. His voice was soft, stunned. You choreographed this. Centuries ago, Hale said. We don't start dances we don't finish. The Emperor's voice cracked. So what now? Naya answered. Now, you rewrite your history. You say we forgave you. Or you say we vanished. Either way, we're the ones who wrote this chapter. And then, across the galaxy, every system that had once been a Terran outpost lit up with a single phrase, blinking in rhythm. Second bell achieved. The Terran ships in orbit disintegrated. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Dissolved. Their purpose complete. No salvage. No trophies. Only the echo. The Empire was left with no enemy. No corpses. No field to bury. Just daughters. And the lesson. In the chamber, the lights dimmed once more. Hale turned back toward the women. Ready to go home? Tessara smiled. Was never far. They began to walk, shoulder to shoulder, toward the far door. No one stopped them. No one could. They left behind silence. But it wasn't empty. It was measured. And in that silence, one young alien cadet dared to ask, trembling, "What happens if the humans ever come back?" From behind the closing door, Naya's voice answered with a softness that shattered bone. "This was us being gentle.